Hello and welcome to another video. Thank you for joining me. In today's video we're going to take a trip through my best and favorite images from 2024. Last year I was blessed to be able to take two major trips. My good friend Andy and I went to southern Utah for 15 days and shot all 5 of the major national parks along southern Utah plus a few other locations. Later on in the year I was able to go to Olympic National Park with my good friend Harold. And we spent nearly 2 weeks up there and finished up at Mount Rainier National Park for a couple days. And so I have my favorites from both of those trips, plus a few others here. And so without all that said, we'll just jump in and get started. The first image here is a little closer to home. This is one of my favorite local shooting locations. This is Magnolia Plantation and Gardens. There's an area up near the front of the plantation with a long line of oak trees covered with moss. And in the spring, when the azaleas come into bloom, the mixture of the oak trees with the moss and the azaleas just makes for a really lovely scene. I like this image primarily because of the range of colors, the pinks, the reds, the light greens, the dark greens, and a lot of those fresh spring colors. Again, Magnolia Plantation and Gardens, one of my favorite local spots. Really thoroughly enjoy shooting there, and I shoot there as often as possible. Next up, also a local image. The Arthur Ravenel Bridge is an icon of Charleston since it's been built. This was shot from the Mount Pleasant side of the Cooper River, Charleston Harbor, if you will. And I like this shot because of the sunset, the colors from the sunset. No clouds. It was a clear evening, but I like the range of colors that gives you from the deep lavenders, pinks, fading into blue near the top of the frame. And I also like including the palmetto tree here as a foreground element in silhouette there on the left-hand side. Another icon of South Carolina. One other trip I was able to make last year was to Northeast Ohio. My wife has family up in that area, and we realized a couple of years ago that the eclipse in 2024 was going to pass right through the length of Lake Erie, which is just a little bit further north of her family up there. And so we planned a trip up there to shoot the eclipse. And so 2 images I got from the eclipse that I really like. This is the diamond ring effect right as totality begins. And the second image is actually a composite of 9 images. As the eclipse progressed, there are 8 images of the eclipse as it progressed toward totality and then after totality. And then the diamond ring in the center there is the same image you just saw composited with the other. This image was captured with 2 different cameras. I had 2 different cameras running to capture the eclipse. And so the string of progression images were shot with 1 camera and the diamond ring with a second camera. Really enjoyed that trip and really happy with what I got from the eclipse. The first part of our trip to Utah was in Zion National Park, and this is one of many panoramas that I shot. The entire landscape of southern Utah really lends itself well to photographing in panorama. This is on the northern side of the park, the access road heading out to the tunnel, although right off the top of my head I can't remember the name of the tunnel. But this is sort of exiting the park, heading toward Bryce Canyon. A number of overlooks along that roadway, and so this is a total of 6 images captured vertically, left to right, and then stitched together in Lightroom to form one panorama. The next image here, also from Zion. This is the Narrows. This is actually the beginning of the hike into the Narrows. This is the end of the Riverwalk Trail. Unfortunately, when we were there, due to snow melt and spring runoff, the trail from this point forward into the Narrows was closed. We couldn't go any further than this, but it still made for a very pretty scene, I think. And certainly looking forward to my next trip to Zion. Maybe we'll get to hike the Narrows. That'd be great. I've seen some beautiful imagery from up in that area. From Zion, we went to Bryce Canyon. Bryce Canyon, also absolutely beautiful, just completely overwhelmed by the scenery there. And this is a view into the amphitheater. And we were planning to shoot some stars and Milky Way images from there at night, because it's Zion and Bryce are both dark sky parks. And unfortunately, we were rained out. We had a lot of clouds, rain, and snow. We were at one point up over the 8,000-foot level, and we had snow. We drove into what we thought was going to be a thunderstorm. Turned out to be a snowstorm. Very pretty, very beautiful snow. It started to accumulate in several areas, but completely unexpected. Unfortunately, the night we were there, we went out to photograph night skies and stars, and completely, just clouded out. We couldn't see a thing. So unfortunately, we had to let that go. We weren't able to do that. The next stop along the way from Bryce, we went into the Canyonlands area, and one of our stops there was the Singing Canyon. This is in the Long Canyon region of Canyonlands. This is not a true slot canyon. It looks very much like a slot canyon, has all the attributes of a slot canyon, but it is closed up on the end. In fact, you can see it come to an end just at the point at the furthest distance into the picture there, kind of just left of center. So being closed up on one end, it's not a true slot canyon. But it is beautiful nonetheless. We had very nice soft light in the canyon, which helped us bring out detail in the shadows and the highlights. And the only problem we ran into here was the number of people who were visiting, and at times had to pull our equipment off to the side and just wait for everybody to finish up their visits before we could start shooting again. Beautiful location, a little bit hard to find. We did struggle looking around for it just a little bit. But once we found it, it was well worth the effort. While we were in the Canyonlands area, we decided to take advantage of some very clear nights, and we returned to one of our sunset locations to photograph the Milky Way. This was shot a single exposure with the Sigma 14mm 14-24 zoom f2.8. This was shot at f2.8 for 15 seconds. At ISO 3200. We had a really clear night, very happy with these images. In fact, Andy and I both shot single images. We both had star trackers going and time lapses and things of that sort. So very happy with that. This is one of the two clearest nights that we had on the entire trip. And I was very happy to see that. It did make for a rather early morning. I think we had a 1 a.m. alarm set to get out here to the sunset location and set up. And we probably shot until 4:30 in the morning, something like that. Wonderful night, and very, very happy with the resulting images. While we were in the Canyonlands area, we were fortunate to shoot sunrise at Mesa Arch. I had heard horror stories about how crowded Mesa Arch could be, with photographers lined up shoulder to shoulder and tripods overlapping and fistfights breaking out over shooting locations. We were lucky in that we didn't have any of that. Besides Andy and myself, we were, there were probably 5 or 6 other people with tripods, a number of people shooting with cell phones and point and shoot cameras and that sort of thing. But it was not overly crowded, not nearly as crowded as I had heard it could be. That is a natural starburst. That starburst comes about from shooting at a high aperture. This is shot at f/16. And the sun coming through a very tight slit in between the rocks and the clouds in the distance, and so that can help create a starburst. Very good experience. I love the underglow there on the arch. The the rock wall beneath the arch is angled just enough to catch the sun and reflect it right up into the bottom of the arch like that. So wonderful experience there, and thoroughly enjoyed that, and that's another location I would love to go back to. While we were in the Canyonlands area, we photographed sunrise in Dead Horse State Park. This is Dead Horse Point. Beautiful early morning red light on those red rocks, so you just can't beat it. Like that side light showing off the texture and the form of the rocks and that sort of thing. I have just enough geologist in me to wonder how those rocks came to be laid down in layers, and then the forces involved in digging through and revealing those layers. I could just sit in some of these locations for hours and just study the layers in these rocks. But we were blessed with a beautiful morning and beautiful light for our sunrise. The next stop on our trip was in Arches National Park. And this is just one of many arches that we photographed. This is North Window Arch, one of over 2,000 documented arches within the national park. One of the things that struck me about the park was how small it was compared to some of the other national parks I've been in. Arches is one of our smallest national parks. This image was a very, this location, I should say, was a very short walk from the parking lot, fairly easy flat walk, but then we walked up onto the arch and around the right-hand side and around behind it on what's called the Primitive Trail. And we were able to photograph this from several angles, although shooting into the light didn't work so well. We shot most of my favorite shots of this was with the light from directly behind me. And from Arches, we went into Monument Valley. We stayed in Monument Valley, and I think that's the part I was looking forward to the most. I was looking forward to, and I thoroughly enjoyed the entire trip, but I was really looking forward to the Monument Valley area. I had always wanted to see the Mittens, and some of the other formations there. And so we were blessed with very good weather while we were in the Monument Valley area. While we were in Monument Valley, we hired a Navajo guide to take us to some of the off-limits areas where the regular tourists wouldn't be able to travel. Monument Valley is a Navajo tribal land, and so where you're able to travel without a guide is fairly heavily restricted. And so with a guide, we're able to go to some of these off-limits areas. We hired this guy to take us out for sunrise, and one of the locations he took us to was the totem pole. Beautiful red light. We just don't get that kind of red light here in the Carolinas. For the most part, it shows up occasionally, but kind of a rare event here, but pretty common out there. The red light on the rocks, and I really like this from the that hard side light showing up the ripples in the sand. This took quite a bit of driving. The guide took us around in his personal vehicle, and way off the beaten path, actually off of the paved road. We drove through some fairly heavy sand that I'm certain would have caused a lot of people to get stuck. But we motored right through it with no issue, and got these beautiful images of this area. From Monument Valley, we went to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. This sunrise location, this is one of a couple of sunrise locations we were able to shoot. And again, just that red morning light, the layers in the rocks. As I said earlier, I could just look for hours at the layers in these rocks, and always wonder how they were laid down, how they were formed, and just the beautiful level of color and depth of color that early morning light provides. Also in the North Rim, this is actually the same location. This is shot from the very same location. The difference here is this is a telephoto shot. We, more often than not, when we shoot a landscape photo, we tend to shoot that landscape with a wide-angle lens. Nothing at all wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, it's nice to change your perspective from time to time and shoot your landscapes with a longer lens. This was shot with a 100-500 zoom, and reaching out there and grabbing those details, I think, shows a little bit different perspective. How rugged that rock is, and again, it shows off the layers of those rocks. From the Grand Canyon, we went to, in August, we went to the Olympic National Park. And this is one of my favorite locations in Olympic. This is Ruby Beach. One of my favorite beaches, well, I should say one of my favorite locations in Olympic and my favorite beach in Olympic National Park. Easy access. The parking lot is relatively high on the bluff on the left-hand side of this image. And it's a fairly easy trail down to beach level. This is late in the afternoon, just before sunset. And again, want that really side light and the warm light lighting up these trees. If you're used to coastal South Carolina, where I am, this beach is quite a bit different from what you're used to. This beach is mostly rock. And these rocks are anything from bowling ball size, perhaps a little larger, to thumbnail size and perhaps a little smaller. Very little sand. And the unique thing is that when these waves crash on the beach and start to recede, they drag some rock out with them. And the clinking sound that the rock makes as it bounces along other rocks, really pleasing to listen to, really unusual to listen to, but very pleasing sound that it creates. Again, as I said, my favorite beach, probably one of the most easily accessed beaches in Olympic National Park, and certainly one of the prettiest. While we were in Olympic National Park, we photographed a total of 5 different waterfalls. 3 of those waterfalls are in the general vicinity of Port Angeles and Forks. Those 3 waterfalls are Marymere Falls and Madison Falls. And what has to be my favorite waterfall in that area is Saul Duck Falls. This is absolutely beautiful waterfall, beautiful shooting up the stream where it comes from. This particular shot from the footbridge that goes across the stream. The trail to get to this waterfall is a relatively easy 30, maybe 40-minute walk, not bad at all. The funny thing about this is as we were in the parking lot getting our gear together, we were commenting about how beautiful the weather was to photograph a waterfall. Overcast, very soft light, even light, and we were looking forward to it. And so 30 minutes to hike into the waterfall, and by the time we got there, the sun had come out, and led to some rather harsh light. So this is an HDR, high dynamic range image. It's a blend of 3 different exposures. And in this case, I had to do that in order to keep details in the shadows and details in the highlights. The one other thing I did to this image that I would challenge anybody to point out is I removed a second log. You see the log across the bottom of the frame. I removed a second log that was covering over the waterfall, and I would challenge anybody to pick out where I removed that where I removed that log from. In fact, when I look at the image, it's difficult for me to tell. I honestly have to go back to the original image and see what it looked like in order to pick out where that original log was. I did that with the remove tool in Photoshop. And generative fill, and it just did a spectacular job. I was completely overwhelmed with the way it handled that. From the Olympic National Park, we went over to Mount Rainier National Park for a couple days. This is one of my favorite waterfalls in Mount Rainier. This is Christine Falls. I love this waterfall, the view kind of through the tunnel, if you will, from the viewpoint. This is, again, really short hike. This is, maybe 5 or 6 minutes to hike down to this viewpoint. The bridge at the top of the frame is the loop road that you ride around in Mount Rainier, with numerous pullouts and viewpoints along that route. And the other reason I love this is the color of that water. You know, I shoot waterfalls in western North Carolina frequently, and we just never get that color of water. I love that aqua blue. I love all the shades of green. You know, we had, for waterfalls, we had great weather while we were in Mount Rainier. Unfortunately, it was cloudy and drizzly for everything else, but it was great weather for waterfalls. Just the color of that water just really struck me, and I really like that a lot. And then we went to, this is Reflection Lake in Mount Rainier, and this is the best view of Mount Rainier that we got on the whole trip. As I said, it was cloudy and rainy the whole time we were there. We were only there for a couple days, but I consider us fortunate in the regard that I've heard other folks who have been there in Mount Rainier National Park for days and never actually saw the mountain. So we were very fortunate, I think, to get this view of the mountain. I have been to this location before. In the morning for sunrise, the sunlight lights up the right-hand side of the mountain from this perspective. And if that lake is flat calm, you can really get a beautiful reflection of Mount Rainier in that lake. But you need relatively clear skies to be able to do that. But great trip. You know, I'm glad we went. We got some, my friend Harold and I, we really got some great images. And I'm glad we took the extra time to go over there. And then finally, I'll finish up with an image that's quite a bit closer to home. This is Botany Bay, which is one of the wildlife management areas here in South Carolina. We went out there, again, my friend Harold, he came down for an afternoon, and we went out to Botany Bay around sunset. We shot till just about dark out there. This is one of those rare occasions in coastal South Carolina where we do get that red light. Not the intensity of southern Utah, of course, but nice when we do get it. This particular evening was very clear, not a lot of humidity, not a lot of haze, and no marine layer down on the surface of the water, and so nothing to block the sun from our subject here. The sun was setting down behind me, and I was able to get that nice, beautiful light on this tree. What I really liked here was the light, of course, but the shape of that tree up against the blue sky just really jumped out at me. So that was a quick journey through my favorite images from 2024. I hope you enjoyed that. I certainly enjoyed shooting them. I hope you enjoyed looking at them half as much. If you like this kind of content, you want to see more, please like and subscribe to the channel. I've got some great ideas. I've kind of made a commitment to myself this year to start putting out more YouTube videos. So I have some other ideas for videos in the works. And so I'll be getting those out very soon. Once again, thank you very much for spending a little bit of time looking at my stuff, and hope to see you again in another video. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you again soon.